Welcome to Module 8. Now we're going to talk about lipids. So for the last few modules here, we're going to break down the various classes of really important biomolecules that are used biochemically, which means relevancy in healthcare. Lipids are characterized by having a huge range of functions, and it's a little bit challenging to say lipids do this because they are a bit subtle in the different types of function that they have in the body. But what we'll see is that they are classified by a few bonding motifs and structures that will really help you identify lipids, and I think will help to lead to that understanding about the role of lipids biochemically. All right, so to begin with, what are lipids? Lipids are a group of biological molecules, and I think that what identifies lipids most acutely is that they're generally nonpolar and they generally have a lot of hydrocarbon. And what this leads to is that lipids are not soluble in water, but they do end up being soluble in nonpolar solvents. However, biologically speaking, we really don't have nonpolar solvents around. Our blood is a watery environment, and so what that means is that lipids, as we'll see, have to use some tricks for getting around the blood. Examples of lipids are fats, oils, waxes, phospholipids, steroids. We'll discuss all of these moving forward, and here are some examples of lipid examples. And what we can see is that there's a lot of hydrocarbon, right? We don't see a lot of functional groups. What we see are big groupings of carbon mass. On cholesterol, we see the one OH group over on the bottom left, but the rest of it is hydrocarbon, as we've learned from our knowledge of skeletal structures. And over here we have palmitic acid, which is a fatty acid, a type of lipid, and this has one carboxylic acid group on the right. However, the rest is this long chain of 15, 16 carbons. So lipids we really want to associate with nonpolar, because even though they may have like a little bit of polarity, their mass and the amount of hydrocarbon leads for them to being insoluble in water. Okay, what are some of the key functions of lipids? Probably the best known function is as a fat. So this is for energy storage. Lipids contain a lot of energy, and these end up being stored in adipose tissue as triglycerides. This is basically fat cells. They're also really important for cell membranes, and we'll get to this towards the end of this module where we show how phospholipids are able to form the structural framework for cell membranes. And when we have a cell membrane, which is basically a wall that allows selective things to enter and exit the cell, that's obviously very important. And we'll see why lipids are the biochemical structure that creates that cell wall, or rather how lipid structure leads to the formation of these cell walls. They're good for insulation and protection. So, those fat cells that I mentioned earlier, these aren't just for energy storage. They have really important biological roles as well beyond energy storage. Hormone production. There are many naturally occurring steroids like estrogen, testosterone, cortisol that are made from cholesterol, which is a type of a lipid here, a steroid, and these are really important for other functions in our bodies. So while lipids may be best known for fat storage in the cell membrane, there are other more subtle, really important functions that lipids achieve. And vitamin absorption, right? Lipids do have a variety of roles beyond just those two main sort of easy to select functions of the cell membrane and for fat storage. And this is another example. Lipids are needed to absorb certain fat-soluble vitamins that we do need. These kind of fat-soluble things, the non-water soluble things, they can kind of be thought of as going together, right? Because they have such a different way that they need to be transported around the body rather than something that's highly water-soluble. Finally, to break things down, here are some examples of types of lipids along with their function. This is really good just to get you thinking about lipids to begin with, what types of lipids there are, what function they might have. Again, we talked about energy storage as well as cell membranes, but there are some other roles that lipids take within the body. the focus of this chapter isn't necessarily going to be on knowing every single thing that lipids can accomplish in the body, but learning why the chemistry and the structure of lipids leads to this variety of functions. Remember, structure determines function. That is like the main theme of biochemistry. And while biochemistry can be so complicated that it's really challenging to know every little thing that's going on with a chemical structure, we can still get a really nice big picture just from looking at an overall structure and seeing, hey, this is a really large molecule. I think that it's going to do something like this. And then we're going to learn how it actually ends up achieving those goals in this course.